Thanksgiving break, and then we'll come back for some great review, and then at the end, with your finals. Can you believe it's gone by this fast? Kind of crazy. All right. So, who wants to tell me what are the legal factors that impact who you marry? Age. Elaborate a little bit for me. How does age impact who you marry? If you're young, you might go, well, if they're young, you might go to prison, right? Tell me a little bit more about it. What's the age cutoff? 18, right? What if you're in between the ages of 16 and 18? What do you have to have if you want to get married? Parental consent, okay? So that's one way that we're impacted by who we marry, is age. What's another legal factor?
Gender.
Gender?
Sex.
Same sex, right? Okay? Elaborate for us.
Some states don't allow same-sex marriage.
That's true. Some states do not allow same-sex marriages. So that's a legal factor that impacts. Who knows that the federal government does not recognize any same-sex marriages? Yeah. The federal government does not recognize any of them. Even if the state does, the federal government does not. Which would mean, because the federal government does recognize all traditional marriages. So if you get married in a state that allows same-sex marriages, such as California, and you move to a state that doesn't allow same-sex marriages, what happens?
You're not legally married in that state.
You're not legally married. It's not recognized. So further implications mean what? Well, if you got benefits in the state that you were married in, and you move to a state where it doesn't recognize same-sex marriages, you lose them, right? Yeah, they're not recognized anymore, so you don't have the benefits of being married anymore.
Wouldn't you have to get a new
ID?
ID?
Benefits of being married.
Wouldn't you have to get a new ID to change your name back?
I mean, that should be part of it. Let's see here. In most Fortune 500 companies now, the larger, bigger corporations, if they have an employee who is a part of a same-sex relationship, they do offer health benefits now to your partner, which is awesome. But that's only with so many corporations. It doesn't trickle down, okay? And they don't have to because it's not a federal regulation. All right, so that's another factor. What's another legal factor of that impacts who you marry? Yes, depending on the culture, no, certain cultures do have sensation. But depending on the culture, definitely impacts on how many people you can marry, right? Okay, what else? There's a ton, guys.
Well,
yeah.
Species.
Species, yes. You can't marry anything other than a human.
Well, wasn't there somebody who married a house? There was a woman who married a house, I think, in some state.
There might be some extreme cases.
Or she tried to, I don't know.
What are some other factors? Legal factors. I'm sorry? Family. Tell me what you mean by that. It's taboo. It's considered incest. They have laws against it. When you go and get your marriage license, usually you have to provide a birth certificate. Why do you provide a birth certificate? Make sure you don't have the same parents. Okay? In some cultures, it is legal for you to marry your cousin, such as if you're a gypsy. What are they? It starts with an R. Romanian gypsies? Is that
Romani.
What is it?
Romani.
Yes, Romani gypsies. They are allowed to marry their cousins. Okay? But most in our general society, that's taboo. Okay? If you're blood related, usually you can't marry. Okay? Some states even require a blood test for you to get your marriage license. And it's because of that purpose right there. Any other legal factors? I'm sorry? At one time race. We'll get into that here in just a minute, okay? I want you to keep that in mind. Any other legal factors that we can think of? Okay, well, let's talk about that. At one time, historically, our government tried to prevent what we call, starts with an M, it's in your book. I heard someone say it, I think, whispered it. Misgeneration, yes, okay? And that was when, two people from different races were marrying each other. That was what was considered illegal for a little bit, okay? That, however, is no longer a legal factor. But let's move on. What are some cultural factors that impact who we choose to marry?
Class.
I'm sorry? Class. Yes, definitely class. Okay? Usually we don't marry outside of our class. Okay? Your book doesn't talk about it, but who's ever heard of the mating gradient before? Has anybody ever heard of that? Has anybody ever heard that women marry up? Yeah? Women marry men who have more money than them or a higher status. Why would they have to do that? Think of sociobiology. Why would generally a woman have to marry a man who has more income and a higher status? I'm sorry? I heard to provide, is that right? Yes, to provide for the family, right? She needs help providing for her children and things like that, right? So women usually marry up, okay? Let's see, what are some other cultural impacts other than class? Well, let's go on, let's say we're from India. We're in the caste system. You can't marry outside of your caste, right? Okay, so that's a cultural impact. All right, what are some other cultural impacts? Religion. Yes. Your book also does not define this word, which is called hegemony. Okay, and this is just an FYI for you. Hegemony means that we choose partners with likeness. Okay, so religious hegemony is definitely an impact or a factor culturally that we use to choose our partner. Okay, usually you marry somebody that's in the same religion as you. Okay, what are some other cultural impacts?
Age again.
Age again. Yes. Explain it.
Well, while it may be legal for an 18-year-old to marry a 76-year-old creep, it's kind of weird.
It's a little taboo, right? As a culture in our society, we don't think that's right. Huh? I mean, even if there's like a 15-year difference in there, we're kind of like, oh, that's a little strange. Right? Yeah, that's weird. That's probably why there's so much media drawn to the amicable-ness relationship. Yeah, that's a good example of that cultural impact right there. All right. Any other cultural impacts? Tell me about it.
Well, in one state it might be legal to, might be socially acceptable to marry the same gender, but in another, completely taboo.
Right, yes. In fact, our society, even though it's shifting, we are in a huge shift right now. You guys are living through a huge shift in same-sex couples and marriages and the openness of it. But still in our culture, we see the arguments of it all the time, and we're going to get into it, is that, it's still kind of taboo to have same-sex relationships. Okay, not as much. It's starting to wane, but there's still a little bit of a taboo in it. Okay? What else? We already mentioned it in the legal. Race? It's a huge cultural impact as well. Your book doesn't point it out, but there's only 15% of marriages in the U.S. that are interracial.
You might want to get close.
Oh, yeah. Let's not do that. Thank you. Okay. But only 15% of marriages in the U.S. are interracial. Can anybody guess what races are involved? Oh, let me reword this. Can anybody guess what races are the highest of interracial marriages in the U.S.? Hispanic and non-Hispanics. Yeah, it's the highest rate of interracial marriages in the U.S. Okay? We also have hegemony there. We call it racial hegemony. Okay? Where you normally marry within your same race. Alright, any other cultural impacts?
Some places, the parents actually set up to be married.
The arranged marriages, right? Yes, there are still places that do that. Let me turn this down. Sorry about that. Okay. Yes, we still experience arranged marriages throughout the world. Okay, that's a cultural impact. Any others? Family. Tell me about it.
Just like with it being illegal, so it's gonna be you want your cousin and your cousin will be acceptable. In Texas, it'll be completely happy.
I believe third cousin is legal, so.
Once you get so far down the line, yes, it is.
Also, family could go with just culture as well, because of like maybe two rival families that kind of have in between two families.
Could. There is a term in your book, and it's called endogamy. Anybody remember reading about that? Will you tell us what it is?
People don't marry outside of race, class, or caste.
Yeah. We like to say it's when you marry inside your family group. And when we say family group, we're not saying your family. We've already extinguished that. That's not what we do. But when we say family group, we're saying the ones that you are most like. Okay? And so endogamy means that you marry within the likeness. Okay? And we have what's called endogamous pressures. Okay? Endogamous pressures are those cultural pressures that we face all the time to marry certain people. Okay? Now the opposite of that is exogamy. That's in your book as well. Does anybody remember the definition of exogamy? Yeah, marrying someone outside of that group. Okay? There are also what we call exogamous pressures, when you are pressured or supported to marry outside of your group. Okay? Alright, so we got pretty much the cultural stuff down. That's great. Alright guys, so Talcott Parsons, what theory does he argue that we need for families?
Nuclear family.
I'm sorry?
Nuclear family.
Okay, he says nuclear family. What type of theorist is Talcott Parsons? What is it? It's on the screen. He's a functionalist, okay? So, what does functionalism say? Everything has a function, remember? Everything has to function smoothly in order for everything to go right. If one part of a function starts messing up, it messes up everything. Okay? Your book does not point this out, but again, we like to talk about family systems theory, and that's all about functioning. Okay? With family systems theory, what we say is that when one function goes awry, then it makes the whole family dysfunctional. Okay? So, here's a little case study. We've got a family, we'll call them the Martin family. Okay? You've got Dad, Dan, you've got Mom, who's Martha, you've got big brother, Danny Jr., and you got little sister Betty. Okay? So Dan, we're in a traditional family here. You all know what a traditional family is now. Okay, so Dan is the breadwinner. He brings in all the income. Okay? And Martha is the home, takes care of the home and the children and things like that. Danny and Betty are in school. They do pretty well. Average students. Okay? Get along pretty well and everything else. Well, Dan used to have a drinking problem. Okay? And he's been pretty stressed out lately. And so Dan kind of falls into a slippery slope. And he's been drinking every single day. Okay? So now he's been drinking on the job. And he gets caught. And now he's fired. So now there's no income. Okay? Now Dan's at home drinking even more and using up a lot of money to buy all that alcohol. Martha is freaking out because how is she going to make ends meet? How is she going to feed her children and, get them off to school, get them all the resources they need? Danny Jr. is witnessing all the, conflict between his parents and stuff like that, and his grades are starting to slip. And so is Betty. Okay? They're both kind of acting out a little bit at school. Now we see where one function of the family just did a ripple effect to the rest of the family members. Okay? That's a pretty big theory that we use in family counseling. All right. Tell me and describe the different types of families. Nuclear family. Nuclear family. What is the nuclear family? Your immediate family, right? Those that you live with most times. Okay? Your mom, dad, sisters, brothers. That's your nuclear family. Okay? What else? Extended family. And your extended family is? Your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents, all that fun stuff. What's another form of family? Cohabitation. Tell us about it.
It's like when the mom and the dad don't really get married, but they sort of just live together.
Yeah, they just live together. They're not married. Okay? Cohabitation is on the rise in our country. Okay, what else? Your book had a whole subheading on this one type of family. Give you another hint. If I remember correctly, it is on the lower half of the right-hand page. Anybody got a guess? Yep.
Is it something to do with like a single family, like where one parent?
Single family is a type of family, though. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. It's not the one I was thinking of, but single family is where you have one parent. Okay, so that's another type of family. What's another?
Blended family.
Blended family. Yes, and what is blended family?
When stepmother.
It's your step family, right? That's pretty common, right? I was very surprised though. Last night I asked this question and I didn't get very many hands. Who is a part of the blended family? Yeah, there's quite a few. Okay, it's normal kind of nowadays. All right. What are some other types of family? I'll give you a hint. This is a type of legal partnership. Common law, and is also known as domestic partnership. Yes, that's where you have the legal aspects of being married, but you're not exactly married. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to give you another, because your book does not define certain families. It talks about them, but it doesn't define them. Your book does not exactly define the traditional family, does it? No, it doesn't, which I think is ridiculous. Okay? So let me give you the definition of a traditional family. The traditional family is the two-parent nuclear family with the husband as the breadwinner and the wife as the homemaker. Okay? So you have those traditional gender roles in there.
You're gonna want to postpone that again.
I'm sorry?
You're gonna want to postpone that thing
Oh
again.
my gosh.
You can make it like.
Make it remind you.
There we go. Okay. All right, let's see here. Has anybody read in your text about the modern family? Anybody remember about the modern family? Tell you what, your book doesn't define it, but it does define what the modern family is, and it deals with income.
Is it when the mother's getting? Oh.
Dual income. It is a dual income family. We also call it as the modern family, okay? Let's see here. Your book does not talk about the postmodern family, okay? I'm going to define it for you. The postmodern family is a non-traditional family emphasizing that a healthy family may not be heterosexual or have two parents. Okay, so basically anybody that, or any family that falls out of the traditional, or, you know, the two parents, two heterosexual parents, and stuff like that, is considered a postmodern family. Okay? And let's see, here's the rest of them I think we got. Wonderful. Okay, do you have any questions about the types of families in America? Pretty straightforward. Okay, so describe to me the family before the Industrial Revolution. Yeah.
It's sort of like everything happened at home, work and everything, because they made everything at home. So they didn't really go out and stuff.
Yeah, it was all in the house. They all worked in the home. Mom, dad, children, everybody worked in the home. What other aspects of this family were there?
There's a lot more kinship networks.
There's a lot more kinship networks. Will you describe what kinship networks are for everyone?
It's like when if you don't have something, but you have a family member who does, then you can just go to that person and then they will help you out for the time being.
Yes, yes. And that involves a lot of extended family, right? So back before the Industrial Revolution, we had large families, okay? They had extended families. They all lived closer together, okay? They all worked with each other. They didn't work outside the home. Children helped out, okay, and they worked. Okay? Any other aspects anybody has to add? They consumed what they made, right? They created their resources and they used their own resources, okay? What happened after the Industrial Revolution to families?
They would buy more stuff that they used to make.
They were buying stuff because it was more consumerist, because they were what? What did families do after the Industrial Revolution?
They became more traditional like today, where the men went out and worked, and the women stayed home.
Yes, men went out to work, okay, to earn an income. Now, they weren't making their own resources, they now had to sell their labor. Okay? What else? Families had to do something during this time in order to earn an income.
Sometimes the kids had to work.
Sometimes the kids had to work, but they had to pick up and move. Yes, they had to move. They became more urbanized. Okay, we saw urbanization really occurring then because families were moving towards the cities, which have factories where they could get work. Okay, which meant that there was more nuclear families and less of what? Families were becoming more nuclear. They were no longer living close by their
Extended family?
Their extended families. Okay? This also decreased the kinship networks. Okay? So now we saw families moving. We saw them with just their immediate families. Okay? Their extended families didn't always move with them. The father was now going out of the home to work. Sometimes the children worked. But then if we move even further, there became the child labor laws. So now children were not allowed to work, and focus was put on education for the children. Okay? And that became a huge focus. Still a big focus. Alright? And then if we keep moving forward, we also now see the birth of dual income families. Okay? Those modern families. Okay, so there's been a lot of changes in the last few decades. Okay. Alright, so tell me what you found out about how feminists go about studying families. I'll give you a hint. Think of way back in the day when we started talking about feminism. What was the goal of feminism? Yes. So what do they do in families when they study families? They study the what? They study the gender roles. Okay? Their idea, feminists, what they want to do is they want to equalize the gender roles within families. Okay? In our society, in our culture, we see a large inequality in families, and we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But feminists say that this is where it starts, and this is where we need to really start honing in on and start making it equal between males and females within families. Okay? Do you have any questions about that? Alright. So, someone tell me about the inequalities among different races and families.
Normally, African American women will earn more than the African American husband, rather of white women would.
Right, yes. Usually in an African American household, the wife is the breadwinner. Okay? What are some other ones? Your book lists them clear as day.
Latinos have extremely strong connections within the family. They value it above anything else.
Yes, Latinos are very strongly connected to each other. What else?
African Americans are also a little bit higher than Caucasians in the sense that they value family.
Yes. Yes, African Americans also have stronger family ties than Caucasian families do. What else? Oh, you guys that left class early on Tuesday didn't sit down and do all these questions? Well, what else? There's tons. What else? While you guys are looking, I'll give you one that's not in your book. Usually in Hispanic families, the females, if they work outside the home more than the males, they have more power in the family. So power in Hispanic families actually lies with who works more and who earns more. Yes?
Due to the fact that the women in African American families usually earn more, the males usually, that's why they sometimes act in irrational ways, such as eating, stuff like that.
Yeah, and what else can we imply since we say that, I mean, it's a fact that African American women usually and families have jobs and make more money. We also know that women don't make as much money as men. So what can we imply? And your book actually doesn't imply it, your book makes it factual.
Caucasians make more than African Americans.
And so we can relate that to, as in families, unfortunately in our country, we see the discrimination there that African American families are more impoverished than Caucasian families. That also goes for another race. Hispanics. There's also another fact in Hispanic families that deals with childbirth. this relates culturally as well. Anybody have an idea of what I'm talking about? Nobody? Okay, well, Hispanic families, usually the women have children at younger ages, and they usually have more children. Can anybody tell me one factor as to why this is? It's a cultural factor, yes.
They don't believe in birth control.
And why? Yes,
That has to do with
that's exactly right. Most Hispanics are Catholics. And if you're a Catholic, birth control is discouraged. I mean, even so much as condoms. Okay? And that leads to a higher birth rate at younger ages. Okay? Alright. So, someone then tell me how inequality starts at home.
if there's more than one sibling.
There's a term for it. What is it called?
Pecking order.
The pecking order. Yes, that's one way that inequality starts at home is the pecking order. What's another way?
I think the book said that the families were like exposed to capitalism, as in certain ones get more than certain others.
Okay, wait, hold on. Say that again. I missed the first part.
Families are exposed to capitalism, as in a certain sibling might get more than another sibling.
Yes, yes. And that's part of the pecking order. Before we get further, let's talk about the pecking order. Okay, we're going to talk about it later on, but let's go ahead and define it. What is the pecking order?
It's the notion that the firsts get better stuff than the middle or the last.
Okay, and it also means that the siblings in a family, they have to what?
Compete.
They're competing. Yes, they're competing to be on top of the order, right? We're going to get into that here in just a little bit. Okay, so that's one way that inequality starts at home. What's another way? Let's think about those gender roles. Think about the traditional family.
If you grew up in a traditional family where your father is the breadwinner and your mother cooks all the meals and cleans the house, that's traditionally probably what you're going to look for when you're finding a mate, because that's what you're used to.
Okay, yeah, we can see that. There is a theory that says that, definitely. But with that, when we see these gender roles in a traditional family, we know that the father is the breadwinner and the mother is the homemaker. Okay, what if they were to split? What does the mother have? Kind of limited resources, right? Okay? In traditional families, the father, or the male, has the power. Okay? They bring in the money. Okay? They have the power in the relationship and things like that. The female, the wife, does not. Okay? She's the homemaker. She stays at home. She makes sure that she has, the house is all pretty, dinner's cooked, the children are taken care of, but no income and no power in that kind of sense. Alright? We can apply conflict theory to that, right? Okay. Do you have any other comments or something that you read or found out or anything that also applies to this? Okay, we'll move on. So, tell me, how do functionalist arguments by Malinowski and Parsons help explain the changes or lack thereof in the institution of marriage?
Parsons, did he say that things should be more like a nuclear family?
He did.
Okay, well that pretty much makes same-sex, I don't know how to say it, but same-sex marriage is pretty much obsolete if we went along with him.
Yes, you're exactly right. That's why in parentheses there is or lack thereof. Okay, because Talcott Parsons says that we need the nuclear family in order to provide nurturing environments for children, in order for them to be able to survive and function in society.
Not only to provide the function, they actually provide the children themselves as well. Obviously.
Well, that would be part of the sociobiology kind of perspective, yes. But from this functionalist kind of perspective, let's also go more in depth, because we hear the arguments for it still today, decades and decades after Parsons says this. What are some of the arguments against same-sex marriages?
I don't know if you know, but in Africa, majority is Muslim. I think I'm not sure, but AIDS is almost obsolete in some places in Africa because they're so strict against same-sex and stuff like that that you just never see it anywhere.
Yeah, the transition of diseases is an argument against same-sex marriages. What else?
Religious purposes.
Religious purposes, yes. Okay, what are some of the religious arguments, though, against same-sex marriages?
That the New Testament is against it.
Okay, that the Bible says that's not, it's not Adam and Eve, or it's not Adam and Eve, it's Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah.
Gomorrah was destroyed.
Okay, what are some other things? Who's ever heard that a same-sex couple cannot raise a child the same way that a heterosexual couple can? Yeah, a lot of people have heard that, right? They can't be as nurturing, okay? It's not possible. They can't do it. They can't provide real-life world situations and, advice and things like that. They wouldn't be as loving, okay? They would also probably produce more gay children, right? Who agrees with all that? Anybody? Okay. If I were to say that there's no way that a same-sex couple could raise a child the same way as a heterosexual couple, would you guys look at me like, oh my God, she's a little discriminating against that? Not even a little, like a lot, right? Well, I'll tell you that there's a lot of studies out there right now that say that there are no differences between children who are raised by heterosexual couples and same-sex couples. Okay? They provide the same amount of nurturing environment as heterosexual couples. Okay? Same amount of resources and everything else. The only difference is the discrimination those children face.
Aren't the abuse rates like really, really low as well? Like there's almost zero to no abuse in those.
Abuse rates are really low. Okay? So, food for thought. Okay? So we understand how functionalists, their arguments kind of explain the lack of changes in the institution of marriage.
I thought I'm not talking about the kids, but I thought about the concerning the relationship between same-sex couples. The abuse rate is higher, isn't it?
I'm not for sure on that. I might have to check that out.
I was referring to the parenting of the kid, but I don't know about the partner.
Yeah, between just the couple. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure the comparison between the two.
I would say it's probably not.
But the main function of the nuclear family, we're actually trying to produce children, so that's another reason.
Yeah, you're right. The main function of a family is to reproduce or to produce children. Okay? Same-sex couples obviously cannot procreate. Okay, so that's another functionalist argument. Alright, so do we see these arguments and how they kind of fueled this lack of changes in the institution of marriage? Okay. Alright, so let's talk about this. Sometimes what is considered normal is far from what's most prevalent currently or historically. And how does this statement relate to perceptions about the traditional family? Because who believes that the traditional family is the family in America? Like the most prevalent? Kind of? Alright, what are some viewpoints that go against that the traditional family is the norm?
Well, we're just America, and things could be completely different in China or India or somewhere else. So,
Okay, well let me hone it into just America.
Well, the traditional family is same race, heterosexual, same
And dad works, mom takes home, the 2.5 kids.
Yeah, so you see a lot of kids like either the amount of kids family has or the roles the parents play, the sexes of the roles, sexes of the parents, the amount of parents that are even there, seeing just the dad, just the mom, and the other side of the kid. So it's actually kind of hard to consider what the normal is.
That's exactly right. It's very hard to, because, shoot, we see blended families all the time, right? How many people know somebody that's been raised by an extended family member? Yeah, and I know from just experience that is very prevalent in this area as well. Okay, locally, that happens a lot. Let's see here. We see same-sex marriages and same-sex families and things like that. What about cohabitation? That's big, right? That's becoming very, very popular. What about the couples that decide that they don't want to have children? Anybody know a married couple who says we're not having kids and doesn't have any kids? Yeah, there's a few. That's on the rise. Okay, women are choosing not to have kids. Okay, focusing on their careers and different things like that. What else do we see that goes against the traditional family? That we see often. Is there anything else? We pretty much covered it all. Interracial marriages, yeah, we see that. It's on the rise. Still, it's a very small percentage compared to all marriages, but still it's on the rise. Okay. What about remarriages? Anybody know anybody that's been remarried? Yeah. Divorces are pretty common now, right? Here's a fun fact. Back in the mid-1600s and mid-1700s, can anybody guess how many divorces there were a year on average?
0.
There's more than 0.
7.
There's 1. 1 divorce a year. Okay? And nowadays we're like, what?
Really unpopular.
The percentage right now that people are saying is approximately 50% of marriages do end in divorce. I've heard that has gone down a little bit.
It is starting to, the trend is starting to decrease. But why? Let's apply some critical thinking here.
Because people are less in a hurry to get married now. It's more acceptable to live together and not be married for a while, or just to simply never marry.
Yeah, we're seeing more domestic partnerships. We're seeing more civil unions. We're seeing higher rates of cohabitation. We're seeing all kinds of these different trends coming in. People are waiting longer to get married. Okay? How many of you guys are married here in this room? I have what? 4? The top of over 100 kids, or I'm sorry, 100 students in it. Because everybody's waiting, right? Who plans in this room on getting married before they finish their degree? I got 1. Well, I got 2. Okay, great. But that's against the norm. The norm now is to wait until you get your education, and then you can go and get married. Okay? That is the absolute norm of today. All right. So let's describe how gender division of labor came after the Industrial Revolution. Who remembers what we're talking about when we say the division of labor? The gender division of labor. Can anybody take a guess what gender division of labor means?
What each one does.
Yeah, the jobs that they hold, okay? The income levels and things like that. So how did the Industrial Revolution impact that?
They made women more reliant.
They made women more what?
Reliant.
Reliant,
On the men.
okay? For those incomes and things like that, yes. What else? We talked about this in inequality and stratification. What types of jobs do males often hold?
Higher status jobs.
Higher status, more prestigious jobs. And what about women? Which requires less education and also pays less, right? Right there is your division of labor. Okay? All right. What is the cult of domesticity? I always mess up that word. Anybody remember reading the cult of domesticity?
It's about where women become more independent, and it's the notion that true womanhood centers on domestic responsibilities and childbearing.
Yes, it is the ideology, it is the thought that women should stay at home, be homemakers, take care of the house, and their children. Okay? They shouldn't go out and work, right? That's the man's job. But how has that changed in the last century?
When they became more independent.
Women have become more independent. Yes, we see that all the time. What else? It's a type of family. We see single households now. Yes, that's a factor. What else? It's another type of family. You don't have one income, you have dual incomes, right? So if you have dual incomes, obviously the wife or the mother is out working and getting an income. Okay? So she's not in the cult of domesticity anymore. What else? Remember the shift that we talked about between men and women's jobs? About how women are starting to take on more professional, more prestigious jobs. You guys remember that?
Women have become more driven to get higher and status.
Yes, women have become more driven to find these higher status jobs, to obtain these higher status jobs, you know, to get their education and things like that. And it's not reciprocating. You know, women are starting to take men's jobs. Okay? They're, you know, being CEOs and CFOs and things like that. Okay? Men, however, are not reciprocating and taking on women's jobs. Remember that? Okay, but we are seeing women pull out of this thought of domesticity. Okay? All right, so then with that, because now we know that women are starting to go out and work. So what's the second shift?
It's when a woman goes out and works and then comes home and does everything at home as well.
Yeah, it's when a woman works and then she comes home, because guess what? The gender rules still say that a woman has to take care of the house and has to take care of the children, right? So a woman's day does not end at 5 o'clock when she pulls into her driveway, because now she has to cook dinner, she has to clean the house, she might have to put the kids to bed, give them baths, you know, things like that. Okay, so that's the second shift. There's also a notion that some people are arguing that there's a third shift for women. You know, if you have young children, you can get up with them in the middle of the night and things like that. Okay? All right, so but how does that relate to the leisure gap between husbands and wives?
Wives probably won't have any free time compared to what husbands have.
Yeah, because guess what? The guys, you know, they get to come home, sit in their recliner, crack open a beer, you know, watch Monday Night Football, and, you know, wife's in there cooking the chicken and getting ready to serve it and everything else, and ring the dinner bell. And then after dinner, Dad again gets to go sit in the recliner, crack open his fifth beer, and, you know, Mom's in there cleaning up the kitchen and everything else, right? So we can see a leisure gap there. Okay, so let's get on to the last question here. What is the pecking order? We've already talked about it a little bit, but let's get more in depth.
It's basically like a status hierarchy.
It's a status hierarchy between the children, the siblings, and the family, right? Okay, so does your birth position then, is it impacted by the pecking order? And does this have an impact on changes in success for school and beyond that?
Yeah, because typically people in the middle don't get as well as resources as people first or last, because people in the middle usually end up with the leftovers and stuff like that.
Yeah, the middle child has a syndrome, right? They're not getting as much attention. They're not getting as much resources and things like that from their parents. So they have to fight and compete for it.
Another thing is disciplinary reactions as well that you see, like the oldest child, while the first can tend to get away with things because then the parents are like, oh, you can't have
It's
that.
opposite.
Completely opposite.
It's opposite.
What?
Oh
No,
no,
it's
it was.
opposite.
I was not allowed to do so much for my
Oldest gets the hardest
sister.
discipline.
Could
Like
do.
young
I'm
kids, they
younger.
have more
That's not.
leniency and more free, like can do more.
Well, what I was saying is like the first one is kind of like guinea pig one.
You must have been an early night kid. I'm just kidding.
No, that is.
I'm with him. I'm the youngest, and I had the. And it was she had more freedom than I
Hold
did.
on. For our purposes, it is the opposite. Okay? For our purposes, the oldest is the most disciplined, and then it's more lenient with each child. Okay? Now, when you are the firstborn, hold on, guys. Hold on. You guys are going to want to know this stuff, okay? Remember, there's no PowerPoint going up for this, so whatever you hear and listen to and write is your study guide. Okay? But the first child, you're the first child, right? I mean, you're the only child there for a little bit. You get all the resources. You get all the attention. You get all the nurturing. You get everything there, right? You don't have to compete for nothing. Okay? By the time the second kid comes around, guess what? You still know how to compete for resources. You're the first kid. Okay? But second child, they gotta compete. Alright? They gotta get that attention. They gotta get those resources. They gotta be better. Okay? The third child, when they come around, they're the babies, right? The babies, they get away with everything. I see some people nod and like, yep, I'm the baby of the family. Okay? And I'll give you a little bit of a story. Okay? When I was in high school, between me and my sister, okay, I was older than 5. Alright? So I know the pecking order very well. Alright? And I'm actually a part of a blended family, which also impacted the pecking order. Okay? So even though I was the first, I was not my dad's first. Okay? So we almost had 2 first children. So not only did I experience the first child awesomeness, I then, in a very abstract way, experienced the second child not so awesomeness. Okay? But what happened got all the attention, my family became blended, all that fun stuff, and here comes my sister, okay, my third sister. Well, no, she's my second sister, I only have 2. So my second sister comes along, and there is a pretty big age gap there, okay? But when I was in school, I was not allowed to date anybody who was not white, okay? Not allowed. And it was made very clear to me that I was not allowed. By the time my sister came into school, more than a decade later, at the same age, okay, they set her up on a date with a very, very, very well-mannered, nice, athletic, very smart black boy, okay? And you can see the leniency between them, okay? Now when I talk about, so that's the leniency between siblings and stuff like that. I'll let you know that my brothers, who are still in high school, are allowed to do whatever the heck they want. And I'll tell you what, if my parents found out that I did some of the things that my brothers did, my parents grounded me for months at a time. My brothers get their car taken away for a day. Okay? So there's a big, huge difference. Okay? My parents also subjected me to writing papers on things when I got in trouble.
I would have ran away.
And yes, guys, my parents were almost Nazis when I was growing up. But by the time that my little brothers and everybody came through, I mean, shoot, it's like, Tanner, we know you smoke some weed. You can't drive your car this weekend. Okay? And so there's a huge difference in the leniency and the discipline between siblings. Okay?
There's also a huge change in cultural aspects as well. I mean, that's like 10, 15 years difference between when you were a kid.
Yes, there is. There's a big, huge difference between me and my youngest brother, okay, in age. Huge difference. And it's just funny to watch. And when I ask my parents about it, they come up with the excuse that, Courtney, you always lie. You are always so bad and you lie all the time. Obviously, my little brother, well, my second littlest brother, who's out smoking weed, is lying a lot too, but... Okay, anyway, also though, let me tell you about the competition, okay? Because growing up in a family of 5 siblings, there was obviously a lot of competition, okay? My sister that I was telling you about, she is in college and is a chemical engineer, guys. How insane is that? So me, when I was in college, she started college after I finished my master's degree, and my parents were all like, oh, chemical engineer, I'm sitting there going, master's degree, okay? So, competition right there, guess what I did? I'm going for my doctorate, okay? Okay, so now we're waiting to see what my little brothers do. Who knows? We're waiting, okay? But that is the competition, okay? Now, some of you guys who stayed to the end of class know a secret. Okay? I'm going to give the rest of you guys a couple of hints, so that way it's still kind of fair. But when I said that you should probably stay and work in class on your stuff, I meant it. Okay? There is going to be a bonus point opportunity the week we come back to Thanksgiving break. You will be able to get up to 10 bonus points. Okay? What you have to do is you have to prepare for it. I'm going to be showing a form of media. I'm going to give you some hints that if you really decide to do some detective work, you will figure out what we're doing. Okay? But you have to be able to go through your book, and everything that we've learned we can apply to this media. And what you have to do is you have to apply whatever it is, okay, and tell me why. Okay, you can't just say this theory works. You have to tell me why that theory applies to what we are doing. Okay? However many you get correct counts as a point. Okay? You will turn it in after the media presentation is over. Okay?
So there's 10
But
possible.
that counts as a point, and you can get up to 10. Alright, so it's a pretty big bonus opportunity. Alright, so your hints are, it is obviously a movie. Okay? It's 103 minutes long. It was first distributed in 1998. It is of the genre social science fiction. Imagine that. Okay? It also provided a thesis for Christianity, simulated reality, and a few other things like that. It was filmed in Seaside, Florida. And it has a very famous actor in it that you all will know. And that's all you get. So happy Wikipedia.
This is American history.
All right? Okay.